Yo, how you doing, everybody? How are we doing? Are we doing okay? Can you hear me out there? Want you to type in where you're from. That would be awesome. I'm Dave England, host of Wine with Dave. Although tonight, it is not wine. What am I drinking? Derivative. This is a good little beer, but I will drink it out of my wine glass. So we got a pour. We got a nice pour. So tonight's guest is coming up in a few minutes. If you are even remotely interested in near-death experiences, what happens right after we die or technically die, tonight is perfect. You should definitely watch. It is great. This woman, I'm not going to steal the thunder. It's amazing story. Please hang in there. But again, type in where you're from. If you want to leave a comment, it can show up on the page just like that. Like Jack Bowden just said, "Hey, Dave." By the way, it is wine o'clock for the next hour. Sit down, chill out, grab a glass of wine, whiskey, beer, whatever you want to do, and just chill. Or mead. Maybe you want to do mead. I am way off to the right. I should be over here instead of in the center, trying to compose that. So anyway, yeah, just type in where you're from. That would be really good. And hit my likes, and also follow me. That'd be really awesome. Been doing this since April 1st, and I try to promote authors, artists, musicians, thought leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs, you name it. I have all kinds of cool guests on. Tonight is absolutely, I'm so excited about it. But I start with a little segment called Did You Know? It's really strange facts. And here we go. Ready? Did you know? I don't know if you can hear Did You Know. Can you hear Did You Know? Maybe you can hear this sound effect. Let me move that up. Did you know? Did you know that most toilets flush in E flat? Yeah, because everything makes a sound, right? If you slap your hands, the crack of a baseball bat on a new baseball, it's got a sound. It reverberates. It actually is a note in the scale, okay, in our Western scale of 8 notes. Most toilets flush in E flat. I thought you should know that. Dave Pickard, my old buddy. Love Proclamation. Hi, Dave. Dave, we got to have a proclamation together. That's it. Proclamation Ale. It's derivative or something. I don't know. It is good. It's kind of lemony. It's really, really good. Noreen is here. Hi, Noreen. Thanks for coming on. You're going to love this. I want everyone to ask questions. Ask away. My guest is going to be awesome. So most toilets flush in E flat. Did you know that Captain Crunch's full name is Horatio Magellan Crunch? I bet you didn't know that. Horatio Magellan Crunch. Captain Crunch. The Vatican City is the only... Actually, I'm sorry, let me back up. The Vatican City is the country that drinks the most wine per capita at 74 liters per citizens per year. Lots of drinking over there. Did you know that approximately 40,000 Americans are injured by toilets each year? I bet you didn't know that. All right. If a female ferret does not have sex for 1 year, she will die. Did you know? I bet you didn't know that. This is interesting. Any Nicolas Cage fans out there? Just say, "Yep, Cage. I'm Cage all the way." Nicolas Cage bought a pet octopus once. Why? Because he sincerely thought it might help with his acting. True story. Also, Nicolas Cage once did magic mushrooms with his cat. That guy is cray-cray. As the kids say, as my daughter says, cray-cray. Well, she used to say that. She laughs at me now because you're not supposed to say cray-cray. It actually takes I've been waiting for this answer since I was a kid in the 70s. Dave Pickard, I know you've seen this commercial. How many licks to the center of the Tootsie Pop? Guess what? It actually takes 142.18 licks to reach the center of a Tootsie Pop. Game over. I can go to bed now. This is interesting. Homosexuality was still classified as an illness in Sweden in 1979. Swedes responded by calling into work sick, saying that they felt gay. Who knew that? I don't make this up. This is Did You Know if you're just tuning in. I'm Dave, your host. Just have a lot of fun. Did you know that no piece of square paper can be folded more than 7 times in half? I've tried it. You cannot do it. I don't care how thin the paper is. 7 is the most. You just can't fold it fully an 8th time. Did you know that the U.S. Treasury once considered producing donut-shaped coins? All right, I'm only going to have one interactive fact tonight, and here it is. The Declaration of Independence was written on what type of paper? And did you know that a duck's quack doesn't echo? And nobody can figure out why. They've done all kinds of tests. They've put them in vacuum rooms and tube rooms and put microphones up and everything. They quack. It does not echo. The weirdest thing. What is called a French kiss in the English-speaking world is known as an English kiss in France. I bet you didn't know that. All right, those are the weird facts for the night. Tune in tomorrow. I'm going to have a whole bunch more. I typically have about 15. So that's Did You Know? But go ahead and vote. Go ahead and vote. I've only have one independent vote here. It's the Declaration of Independence was written on what kind of paper? Anybody? Pickard's, he's responding to something else. Crap. Where is everybody from? Where's everybody? Stacy Klinger from Laramie, Wyoming. Awesome. Great having you on, Stacy. Maybe you were listening to the near-death experience page. I'm not sure. You have to let me know. Pickard, lots of toilet accident. That's a lot. 3. I don't know if it's 3. I don't know what 3 is. No, 7. 7 times. Taylor Dorsey. Hi, Taylor. Please stay and watch. You're going to love this. This is really awesome guest tonight. All right, only one person is guessing. I'm going to give you another second here. The Declaration of Independence was written on what type of paper? And while you're getting that, I'm just going to pour this. Just type it in. What kind of paper was the Declaration of Independence on? Oh, that's smooth. Wow, that is smooth. Single hopped. It's Single Hops with Dave. It changed the name. This is really good. But when you have a beard, it gets in there. In that Swedish Viking beard, it just kind of collects. All right, anybody want to guess? Anybody? We've got a few people. We've got Dave Pickard said hemp paper. That's interesting. Noreen says parchment paper. Annie McCarthy says rice paper. Well, we have a winner. It's Dave Pickard. My guest said onion skin. No, she's wrong. Hemp. Yes. Declaration of Independence was written on hemp paper. And they still haven't legalized marijuana all over the world. Anyway, I don't smoke, haven't smoked in years, but I think it's crazy. Maybe they should just legalize it all over the U.S. We could talk for hours on that. Hey, today is Thursday, September 24th. My guest is coming up in a second, but I got to get this out of the way. September 24th, 2020. Whose birthday is it? Well, let's see. Is it this guy? Yeah, I think it's this guy. In 1893, Blind Lemon Jefferson. Any blues fans out there? He was born on this day He was an American blues and gospel singer, songwriter, musician, father of the most popular blues singers in the 20s, and has been called the father of the Texas blues. You got to just spend one night and just play Blind Lemon Jefferson all night long. You will be a changed person. Jefferson's performances were distinctive because of his high-pitched voice and the originality of his guitar playing. His recordings sold well, but he was not a strong influence on younger blues singers of his generation who could not imitate him as easily as they could other commercially successful artists. Later blues and rock and roll musicians, however, did attempt to imitate both his songs and his musical style. Blind Lemon Jefferson, you were born 1893. I don't know how old you would be now, probably 120, 130 years old. Whatever. Anyway, you can't even see the glass. Blind Lemon, get out of the way. I'm trying to toast you. There we go. Trying to toast Blind Lemon. He's always in the way. These old blues guys, if you're born in 1893, you're always in the way. You're old and in the way. Can't even toast you. What else happened today? This guy was like my hero growing up. If anyone knew me as a kid, I was a weird kid into puppets and ventriloquists and stuff. Some call that weird. It's this guy. Remember this guy? Jim Henson, 1936, an American puppeteer, animator, cartooner, artist, inventor, filmmaker, screenwriter, who achieved worldwide notice as the creator of the Muppets from 1955 till when? Till present. It's still going on. And Fraggle Rock, puppeteer and puppet character creator for Sesame Street, 1969 and on. And as the director of The Dark Crystal, 1982, and Labyrinth, 1986. Very sad day on May 16th, 1990, when Jim Henson put his hand inside of a puppet one last time. He died in New York City at 53. What have you done with your 50 years of life, huh? Jim Henson started a movement. His ashes were scattered near Taos, New Mexico. In the weeks following his death, he was celebrated with a wave of tributes. He posthumously, that's a weird word. I always have a problem with that. He posthumously received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 91 and was named a Disney legend in 2011. I toast you with the other hand so you can see me. Hey, Kermit, you want a drink? Give Kermit some. All right. Turn him off. This next one, for you 70s buffs, this is cool. Guys, remember these guys? 1968, the Mod Squad premieres. Police Captain Adam Greer recruits a trio of hippie cops with a checkered past to infiltrate the counterculture and nail the adult criminals preying on clueless young Southern Californians. This youth squad is made up of Pete, whose wealthy parents kicked him out of the posh Beverly Hills home, Link, my favorite Mod Squad, a survivor of the ghetto, and Julie, a former hooker arrested for vagrancy. The Mod Squad premiered 1968 today. That's cool. I got to say something before I bring my guest on. I adopted two kids in Russia, Dylan and Alina, and they're now 17 and 15. Alina is 15. I've been looking for 14 years for her birth parent and Dylan's birth parent too. And they're open to it. It's an open adoption. They want to meet. They want to know if they have relatives or half-brothers or whatever. 14 years. Now, mind you, it's not like I was looking every day, but consistently I would type in the names in Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, you name it. Nothing. And then a few years ago, I got a friend request on Facebook from a guy in Stolitomok, Russia, where we adopted. His English was bad. Google Translate wasn't even around then. And he would say, hello, happy Christmas. And that was it. He'd be on Facebook like once every 6 months. And I was like, how do you connect with me? How do you know? And he says, my mother worked at the orphanage. And then that was it. And I wouldn't hear from him again. I'd be leaving comments. Well, finally, last night, he got on again after like 10 months or so, maybe a year, and he says, "Hi, David." I said, "Hey, how's it going, Adam?" And he said that his mother is Rose. Do you remember her? I'm like, "Yes." Rose held my daughter in her hands. And it's a custom when you adopt in Russia that the women that are the closest to the child, they go up to their bedrooms or upstairs, and they dress the child for the very last time before they are handed off to the new parents. It is heart-wrenching for them. Oh my gosh. Well, Rose worked at the orphanage. She came downstairs. I'll never forget it. Her eyes were red, red, red. Tears pouring down, and she's holding my daughter, all bundled up in 5 coats. Her head was just stuck in there, and oh my gosh, it was the worst feeling. I felt like I was kidnapping a kid legally. I felt like I was legally kidnapping a child and pulling it away from this woman who loved her and took care of her every single day. I just imagine every day she woke up and she couldn't wait to go to work to see baby Igul. That was Alina's name that her birth mother gave her. So Rose was in love with my daughter. Igul, by the way, means moon rose in Russian. My grandmother, Rose, when she passed away, there's been a tradition in my family that every girl born to the family would pick Rose as the middle name. There's something about Rose that's in my life. 14 years later, he contacts me and he says, "Do you need to find someone?" I'm like, "Yes, I've been trying to contact you and talk to you more, but you're never on." He goes, "Give me the name." So I type it in. I got all the paperwork. Type it in, what street she was on when she gave birth. A few hours later, early this morning, he texts me and he goes, "I used to be a cop. I called the police station in her village and I found them. But unfortunately, Alina's birth mom died 2 years ago. She was only 40 years old. And, but she has a sister. She has a half-sister. And as soon as he contacted them to see if they'd be open to talking to us, he gave them my information, and our social media flooded. People were contacting us through TikTok and Instagram. They're following the Wine with Dave Instagram page and Facebook, and oh my gosh. So it was like this very sad end of a 14-year search. But it was good too, because she's got a half-sister named NDEer, 22 years old, who just had a baby. She's an only child, lost her mom at 40. 2 years later, she finds her half-sister, my daughter. They're texting back and forth all day. It's amazing. She's got cousins. One cousin is 15 years old, looks just like her. Oh my gosh. They're going back and forth. It's crazy. To say that this Russian family is excited is a gross understatement. I know I'm going long on this story, but this really, oh man. Oof. See, I try not to be emotional. That's tough. Alina bawled her eyes out. I held her for the longest time, and she's taken it hard. And she felt like, she just lost her mother. She was hoping that she'd meet her one day, and she calls her birth mother, and that she would come to her wedding maybe. And what do you do? You just, as a dad, you just hold her. I can't tell you how many times I've thanked God for that woman, that she gave up little Igul and didn't abort and just knew that she'd have a better life. Anyway, that I had to get that out, because that happened on this day, 2020, September 24th, after 14 years. That's worthy of a story. All right, let's get into the next part of what we're talking about. My guest, and thank you guys, you're leaving some comments here. Happy for you, Noreen. Awesome. Just amazing, Dave. Yeah, I know. Dave Pickard adopted as well. He knows. He knows. We got after COVID. We got to get together, brother. All right, you guys ready? This is good. This is really good. Tomorrow night, my guest is Don Terrell. He's a motion designer and digital animator who has his own live show just like this. You got to tune in if you're into motion graphics, animation. It's creative night, creative Friday. But tonight you're in for a treat. My guest is Barbara Bartolome, a near-death experiencer and founder of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Check this out.
And so my eyes shut, and in that second of shutting my eyes, I immediately opened them, and they weren't in my body anymore. They were up on the ceiling. So it was a feeling of being all of my consciousness being up on the ceiling, clear and astute, and my body being down on the x-ray table, looking not more than a wetsuit and not feeling very attached to it. And he was calling code blue, and so I said, if I'm up here and my body's down there and he's calling code blue, I think I must have just died. So at that point in time, there was a very big feeling of some presence that was next to me. And the presence felt so eternal and so loving and accepting. And I felt as though I knew the presence even better than I knew anyone in my present life.
There she is, Barbara. How's it going?
Hi, everybody. I'm wonderful, and you are an amazing human being. I am glad to have gotten a chance to meet you.
Yeah, I'm a little emotional right now, so I'll get through it.
Yeah.
With my proclamation ale and you'll get me through it. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It is so, I always wanted to have a near-death experiencer or an NDEer, right? Is that what they call you guys?
Yeah, NDEer.
NDEers, near-death experience, someone who actually left the body. Guys, this is a great guest. I am so excited. But I've always wanted to have someone like you, so I Googled it. I'm like, who can I just invite and just say, hey, would you like to be on a show? Your name keeps coming up. You're like on all these news stations. 260,000 views. You're on authors. You're on stage. You're all over the U.S. You're like a rock star in the near-death experience thing.
I guess.
You know what I'm going to call you?
Don't keep talking.
You know what I'm going to call you? You are the Keith Richards of near-death experience. I bet you've never been called that before.
Never.
All right, so Barbara is in Santa Barbara, California, and I made a mistake. She is the founder of the Santa Barbara, California International Association of Near-Death Studies, for Near-Death Studies, for Near-Death Studies. And you were delivered this amazing gift to die and come back and tell about it. Let me just get right into this. I got you for 45 minutes. I'm going to chew your ear off and get everything I can out of it. How did your 1987 near-death experience contribute to the massive changes in your life? And you could just tell us about the story right now.
Yeah, so it was 1987. I was married to someone, and he was an engineer here in Santa Barbara. I had moved from Oregon down to marry him, and I'd been married about 7 years at that time. I had a son from a previous marriage that I had dearly adored, and I had a brand new baby in 1987 in July. So unfortunately, the person who I was married to, after I married him, I started figuring out that he had incredible abuse issues, and it probably came from his dad. And I was trying to help him through it. And so I wasn't leaving him. I was trying to get him into a marriage family therapist and a pastor of a church and trying to talk to him about his behavior.
Yep.
No, it wasn't working. So After I had the baby, unfortunately, I had a ruptured disc in my back, and I went into surgery in December of 1987. And before they wanted to do the laminectomy and discectomy surgery the next morning, they had come in to the hospital the night before and said, you have to have a myelogram, and we have to check your spinal cord to see when your disc blew out, if a piece of that disc fractured your, clipped your spinal cord, because if you're leaking spinal fluid, you'll never get, we have to deal with that because you can't walk right now, and you won't be able to walk even if we do this laminectomy discectomy if your spinal cord is damaged.
Oh, and
So
so that dye, you can detect that through the dye.
yes, they injected iodine dye into the back of my neck. They numbed just the area. I was perfectly, awake and everything, and they had me lay on they had me laying on an X-ray table.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, both the neurosurgeon and the orthopedic surgeon that was going to do the surgery the next day were both present. And I think it was because it was like late in the evening, like 7 o'clock p.m. or
Mm-hmm.
5 o'clock p.m. or something, and they might not have been able to get the results from the test prior to the 7 a.m. surgery the next morning. So maybe that's why they were there. I'm not sure.
Oh.
But we had two x-ray techs and a nurse and then the two doctors. And the two x-ray techs were leading the whole procedure. And after they injected the dye in, they told me, you have to lay very still. I was 31 years old, and they said, you have to lay very still, because if you don't lay completely still, you can have headaches for months afterwards. And so I'm like, I'll freeze here. I won't
Whoa.
move, I promise.
That's not a
So
stressful thing to say.
I know it's like, I don't want to have headaches with two kids to deal with, especially a 5-month-old baby.
Oh
And
my
so,
gosh.
and I was also working at the time. So what they did was start moving the table, and the x-ray tech, one of them had his finger on the button to move the table, and he started talking to the other x-ray tech that had the monitor in front of him and was going to watch the progress of the dye going down my spinal cord. And they weren't watching the table, and I guess maybe the two doctors weren't either, because it wasn't really their procedure. And so what was happening was, accidentally, the guy was pushing the wrong button on the table, and he was lowering my head and raising my feet instead of raising my head and lowering my feet, because it needed to run,
No.
with gravity down my spine. So instead, it ran into my brain. And it only took maybe a couple minutes, but it immediately felt funny. And I thought, well, I wonder if I should, they were talking to each other, so I didn't want to interrupt them. And I couldn't see the doctors or anybody else because the guy's body was kind of blocking my view.
So you were
So I
conscious at this time. This procedure was
I was
happening. You were
totally
conscious.
conscious. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely conscious. They just injected the dye into the back of my neck, and so they numbed that area, but that was all that was happening. So um, the guy was talking to the other guy, and I thought, well, I don't want to interrupt them, but I feel really funny, and I wonder if I'm supposed to feel like this, and so I sat there for too long, thinking, maybe I won't interrupt them. But then when I finally realized, hey, this has got to be wrong. I'm feeling so weird. I know I'm gonna faint. I didn't know I was gonna die. I thought I was gonna faint. And by the time I wanted to interrupt them in their conversation, I couldn't speak. So my I could think, but I couldn't put anything out. And I also couldn't reach out and touch him and, like, hello, help me. And so the thing that happened was that I was very panicked in my body, and my eyes started rolling to the back of my head. So I was laying there on the table, and I'm trying to stay present and trying to keep my eyes so that I could focus on things in the room. The very last thing that happened was I started hyperventilating. And that's that very fast breathing, and you're, and so that's what alerted them. So they heard me do that, and the guy who had his finger on the button stopped talking to the guy, and he leaned his head over my face laying on the x-ray table. I was facing upwards, and he saw that my eyes were rolling back and that I was hyperventilating. So he leaned back and he looked to see where his thumb was on the side of the table, and he made this look like, oh my God, like, he just went, ah. And so
Ooh.
right then, that was the
Lawsuit.
last thing I saw. Yeah, I never sued them, but that was the last thing I saw. And literally, my eyes just shut in my body right then. Once I saw him have that reaction, my eyes shut in my body. And the next second, I was up on the ceiling above my body, and I was looking down at my body, face up on the x ray table. And instead of being panicked, which is what I was feeling before I died, because of all the things that were going on with the test, I was completely calm. And I literally looked down at my body, and it was not, it didn't even feel like it was me. Who I was up on the ceiling. My body was nothing more than a wetsuit down there. I didn't feel attached to it. It didn't mean anything to me. And I looked down and very calmly said, huh, if I'm up here and he's down there calling code blue, I think I just died. And right when I said that, it was very interesting because I realized that someone else was up on the ceiling with me. And the feeling of that being felt so incredibly eternal and loving and accepting, and no judgment and nothing, just beautiful, that I assumed that it was God. And so I began I was able to think clearly. And so I began saying to this being how much I wanted to go back into my life. And I said, if I don't go back into my life, my children will be left with this abusive situation, and they won't grow up to be the good human beings that they're capable of being. I need to go back to keep protecting them.
So wait a
And
minute.
so
So
I
you were
was
very,
saying,
very. I mean, to think that you are very clear, conscious,
oh, yeah, I
ab-
was completely, oh, yeah,
completely clear. It wasn't like
completely
foggy. There was no
PMS.
fogginess.
No cloudiness whatsoever. Not a moment of that. Only when I was just before I was going to, die in my body, my eyes were rolling back, and I was trying to get them to go straight, and I was hyperventilating without, hyperventilating without wanting to, and
Yeah.
that I was out of control in my body. But once I got up on the ceiling, I was completely me, and I was normal, and everything was okay, and I wasn't at all upset. I was. You'd think that you'd go like, no, no, I can't be dead. No, that didn't
Wow.
happen at all. It was literally this calm, oh, okay, I must have just died. And, asking to go back. And they were doing all of this resuscitation stuff down below. The two x ray techs had started doing chest compressions, and one was blowing into my mouth. And the nurse had run over to the table and was calling for a defib unit. And the two doctors were, calling out, oxygen cart and, things that they wanted to get in there. And I watched as the oxygen cart came in, and the nurse was calling on the phone, defib unit stat, and the defib unit never came in. So I was watching though when this one man came in, and he had a box and he set it on a ledge next to the back side of the table, on the far side of the table. And he started peeling these little white things off and putting them on my chest. And I didn't know what it was that he was doing. I wasn't really a TV person, and I didn't realize it was a heart monitor he was connecting me up to. So I was talking to this being, and I was saying how much I wanted to go back. And in that moment, when I was watching this guy doing something that I didn't understand, I said, what is that he's doing? And when I said that, I was moved from up on the ceiling, looking straight down my body, over in front of the box, and it was on this shelf next to my waistline of my body. And he was finished putting on those white things, and he reached over, and I watched his hand go across my face like this and hit this toggle switch, and this little green light lit up inside the box, and it started going across the screen in a straight line, and it was making this monotone sound like beep. I didn't know it was a heart monitor. And so I watched it go across, and I watched it go a second time across the screen, and started again for the third time. And on the third time, it was about a third of the way over, and all of a sudden it hit me. Oh my gosh, I think that's supposed to be going up and down. My heart has stopped. So I actually watched my own flatline. The second that I said that I think my heart has stopped, then I was back up on the ceiling again above my body, looking back down at everybody's heads and my body on the x-ray table. So it's kind of like maybe that being, when I asked for what is that, they put me over there until I figured it out, and then they let me come back up on the ceiling again. It's the only thing I can think of. But
Twice
was
dead.
pretty awesome to see my family.
Twice dead.
It was really amazing. So then, it ended up that probably about 8 to 10 minutes total that I was dead. About 2 minutes before I got resuscitated, the neurosurgeon said to the orthopedic surgeon, "Too much time has passed. We need to do something. She's going to be brain dead." And the orthopedic surgeon said, "Stand clear." So both of the x-ray techs moved away from the top part of the body. There was a nurse standing there too. And they backed off. And he took 2 steps forward, took his fist from behind his back and just arced it over his head and just pounded my chest. And I watched that from up above. It didn't hurt because I wasn't in my body. But I watched my body kind of react to it. You kind of jerk. But I didn't come back into my body.
Did you feel anything?
Any
slight pull back in or no? You were completely calm, but your body was getting pounded.
Yep, he just completely smacked my chest. And so then what was interesting was right when he did that, the being finally spoke to me. I had said about 4 different times in 4 different ways why I wanted to go back to help my children. I was discussing how my husband had this abuse situation, and so I was saying that, and so the being finally spoke to me. Once that first, it's called a precardial thump. They do that as a last-ditch effort to restart someone's heart by shocking it with that blow when they can't get the defibrillator in because it never actually came in. So once he hit me, then the being spoke to me, and it was the most beautiful and calm and deep voice you could imagine. It was just this, I'll try to imitate it. He went, it was a he, and he went, "But if you go back, you'll still be in your marriage. What will you do?" And then I was shown all these little film clips that just flash, 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 of all these incidents that I had lived through in the 7 years of his anger, abuse, and etc. And I was reminded, because I'd been trying to kind of forgive and forget all the way along to try to get him to get it to a better point. And you can't just keep on letting that build up, otherwise you have anger. So I was trying to let go of those and wait. They weren't happening every day. It was like 3 months in between or something, but they were terrible. And so I saw the little flashes of the incidents, and then it was like I was given all the time that I needed to evaluate what I wanted to do. What was my decision? Did I want to go back into my life where it was dangerous, or did I want to stay with this being that loved me so much and leave my children behind? And so I evaluated it and thought about all the things that I had done in my husband's 7 years with me to help him get past this. And I realized, after thinking about everything that I had done, that he wasn't going to change. And so I said to the being, "If you let me go back, I promise you that I will get strong enough to leave him." And I knew up there in that realm above my body that part of my problem had been that I had been a very strong individual when I'd met him. And, my mom was a police officer, and I'm 5'9". I'm a big girl, and I was a power girl. But in those 7 years, his abuse had taken me to where I was living in fear every day. I was always afraid he was going to blow, and I was really, really diminished. So I said that to the being. The second that I said the last word, which was him, "I'll leave him," the second I said that, the doctor did the second precardial thump, and my eyes shut up on the ceiling, and I opened my eyes, and I was looking right into the doctor's face because he had just struck my chest, and so he was only an arm's length away from my face, and I had the oxygen mask on my mouth, and I said into the oxygen mask, "What just happened?" And the nurse said, "Stop, don't talk, we need to stabilize you." And so for 20 minutes, I don't know what they, were doing all sorts of stuff. And then they finally took the oxygen mask off. And I said, "What just happened?" And I said, "I was up on the ceiling. I could see everything." And the neurosurgeon was standing right there along with the orthopedic surgeon and the rest of the whole team that had been in there. And he goes, "Oh, brother." But you think that that's bad, and it is bad for medical personnel to do anything like that to someone who's had a near-death experience. And I've done a lot of talks about that at the hospital even. But it did make me completely validate what had just happened to me because I wanted them to believe me. So I immediately said, she was on the phone calling for the defib unit. That lady brought in the oxygen cart. That man brought in the heart monitor. I was flatlining. That guy was doing CPR. And, so I explained everything. You should have seen, that he had his hands next to his body and they were clenched, the neurosurgeon, and he pulled his hands next to his body and he went, I am not going to stand here and listen to this. And he stormed out of the room. But he was the only one who left. The orthopedic surgeon held my hand then, once that neurosurgeon was gone. And he said, what else did
Wow.
you see? Yeah, what did you hear? How did you feel? What was it like? And everybody in the room was just like, they wanted to hear. But then they put me on a gurney to take me up to my room for the surgery the next morning. And not a single person in the next 4 days of being in the hospital would tell me anything about what it was called that had just happened to me. I didn't even know it was called a near-death experience, and no one would talk to me. And so when my now ex-husband came in after the surgery the next day, and I told him what had happened the night before, he looked at me with disdain and said, oh, that couldn't have happened. You probably hallucinated it. And so I just completely stopped talking about it. I didn't want anybody to know. I thought people would think I was weird. I've never done drugs and I don't drink alcohol. So hallucinating, I'm not sure why I'd be doing that, but I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm not gonna talk about that. So I ended up leaving and divorcing him. And here in Santa Barbara, it was, it was a hard mom with two little children. I won custody with my daughter. I shared custody with her dad, but my son was my full custody. And I just had amazing things then happen after that whole event. I ended up talking to that neurosurgeon when I had to go back to him 2 weeks later. And I was sitting in his exam room waiting for him to come in, and it was a follow-up visit after the surgery. And he literally walked into the exam room and put his hand up in front of my face and said, if you want to talk anything about what happened to you during your myelogram, you can get out of my exam room and go find yourself another neurosurgeon.
What?
He was
I've never even heard that kind of attitude.
he's a bad guy.
He
He's
did
a good
not want to
neurosurgeon.
hear it. Whoa.
Yeah, it was really
All right,
crazy. So
hold on, Barbara. Anyone out there want to ask Barbara a question? Now's the time. Ask away. Oh my gosh. Deb Burton just said, "Wow." Dave Pickard praying hands. My gosh. You'd
yeah.
think that most doctors would appreciate that. Like, yeah, we see this a lot.
Nowadays, yes. 1987, no.
Oh, wow,
So
yeah, right.
I'm even invited to talk at hospitals and sometimes churches and stuff now about my near-death experience. But back then, there was completely no way was anybody going to discuss that at all. Yeah. So it was interesting. And then it
Let
was
me ask
about
you, so how long did it take for you to finally open up? And really, more importantly, why did you not open up? You didn't want to look crazy to people?
right. Yeah, because, in Santa Barbara, we're kind of a small community. Oprah lives here, a lot of Hollywood people, there's a lot of wealthy people here. And I worked at the time of the NDE, I worked for a utility company. And then I ended up working for the university here. And I was pretty sure that anybody that I told that to would think I was wacky or something. And nobody that I knew had had one, and I didn't even know what it was called. So I didn't know that there were other people out there in the world, many, many millions that have had them. And so it took me about 12 years. My daughter was about 12 years old when a nurse from the hospital was at my daughter's gymnastics class, and we were sitting next to each other. And she was kind of telling me that her mom was going to die that week and that her mom was going downhill. And I felt so bad that I said, I can tell you something that happened to me personally. It might help you in how you are looking at your mom's death, it might help. And so I told her about my near-death experience, and she's the one who told me, Barbara, do you know that's called a near-death experience? There's websites online with information about it. We nurses see it all the time.
Wow,
And
in
she
12
said
years you never knew what it was called.
never knew what it was. Never knew what it's
Someone's
called.
asking a
I took it up.
question. My cousin Noreen is saying, did you see, a little spelling there, but did you see the being? So when you were up there, you left the body. Did you look over or did you not need to? What happened?
It felt like it was someone that I knew so well from beyond this span of life of 64 years. Back then I was only 31, but it literally felt as though somebody, that the being was someone who I'd known before I came to Earth, and that I would know all through my life, and that I would know even beyond my life. It felt like so eternal. And I was asked that when I was on the NBC Today show, and I said, it's as if like your husband of 70 years or something is standing right next to you and he's talking, and you don't need to look at him. You know who he is. This was that times a million. That being was so known to me and so close to me that I didn't feel like I even needed to turn to see if there was like a light or a shadow or anything
Right.
else that was there. It was known. So yeah, I didn't actually see
The,
who
the,
it,
the feeling
like
and
what it felt.
the presence was so
Yeah,
strong. Isn't that
absolutely.
weird? Like you felt like you've known him way even before you were born.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Part of that might be because of what happened, about age 55. I found, the IONS organization, and I went to a conference, and I ended up being I asked a question that all the after effects that are out there that they contribute to near death experiencers, when I saw what they were and I found out what they were at this conference, I was really confused because I recognized that those after effects had been all the way back to my early childhood. I saw some of them that had been through my whole life. And that didn't make any sense to me, because if I had my near death experience and it was an after effect of that, why would it be all the way back to my childhood? So I
Yeah.
asked a researcher who was there at the conference. Her name is PMA Chatwater. And I said, why do I have these after effects before I had my NDE? And she was so kind, and she took my hands and she said, you should really talk to one of your siblings or your parents, because something might have happened to you early on in your life that you haven't been
Ooh.
talked to about. So at the time when she said that, I thought, no, my parents would have told me, or my brother or sisters, they would have told me. No.
That was my
Actually,
next
it was
question
yeah,
about your older
yeah,
brother.
yeah. My older brother ended up, I didn't want to tell him about my near-death experience and spoil it and kind of plant that, idea. So what I said was I was doing a medical background on myself so that I could put together like a binder with information all the way back to my childhood with my, vaccinations and everything in it. And I said, is there anything other than the two, three things that I remember from when I was really young that I injured myself or whatever? Do you remember anything else? And my older brother is 10 years older than me. He lives in Oregon. And we were at a dinner together at a restaurant, and we were going in when I said that to him. And he said, I don't know, I'll think about that. And we went in and had dinner, and then we came back outside and we were saying goodbye. And he took my arm and he put his hand on it, and he said, Barb, there is something that I need to talk to you about. And he said, I've known that I should tell you this all through your life, but the parents, our parents said never to talk about it. So when we were young, we never said anything about it. And no, you don't know this happened to you, but when you were 18 months old, you had a really high fever. You were sick with something. I don't know whether it's the flu or what it was, but he said you went into convulsions, you stopped breathing, and the parents called the fire department, which was 911 back then. And they ended up telling my mom to put me into a bathtub with my body, because I wasn't breathing and I was turning purple, into a bathtub with tepid bath water, and then to slowly add ice cubes to slowly lower my body temperature while the ambulance was on its way over. And so my brothers were both sent off to the neighbors' houses to get more ice, because we only had like one tray of it in 1958. And so when he came back from getting the ice at the neighbor's house, he said, "You were really, really purple. You were completely lifeless. Mom was sobbing over the top of you and had you submerged up to your neck into the bath water." And he said, I've never been so scared in my whole life. And he said, as I was watching you, you came back to life. He said, all of a sudden, you arched your back, backwards. And he said, you took a breath in, and he said, you started crying, and you went from purple to bright red again, because obviously the blood was flowing through and I was still feverish. And
Holy
so he
cow.
said, then the ambulance people came running in and they took you off the hospital, and parents said, never talk about it. So I'd always had those after effects in my
Why
life, and
would
I never
parents
knew.
why would parents do that? It's just a scary, they
I
don't want to
think
scare their kids?
I think it was so scary for them. The event was so scary. My mom was pregnant, just about to deliver my little sister, and I think it was just so scary for both of them that they didn't want to, didn't want to talk about it.
Now, how old
Yeah,
was your brother when he saw you in the tub?
12, almost 12.
Whoa,
Yeah.
I'm thinking he's like, as you're saying the story, I'm thinking he's 3 or 4 years old. Wow, he's 12? He was
No,
never been so
12.
scared.
I had a 10-year-old brother and a 6-year-old sister when it happened. And my 6-year-old sister, the one that's 6 years older than me, she remembers the incident as well. So both two of my siblings remembered it. Yeah. So it was pretty, cool to find that out, because all these after effects that happen, which, they can include a lot of different things, and they were, affecting my life as a young person, and I never knew why. It wasn't until I found out about that then I went, oh, okay,
So the
yeah,
after effect, is that typical of NDEers, that there's a lot of after effects?
yes. So intuition, usually increased intuition, and a very more calm demeanor, less aggressive, less competitive. Um, just, a lot of really, you lose your fear of death. And so I had a lot of incidents that happened when I was young that were like standing on a street corner. I was 3 years old, I think. No, I was 5 years old. My little sister was three. And all of a sudden, I broke my mom's grip. She was holding onto both of our hands, and I put my hands over my face. And my mom was kind of a no nonsense, like ended up being a police officer. And she's like, what are you doing? And I threw my hands. I said, they're going to crash. And just after I said they're going to crash, a car ran the red light in the intersection right in front of us and broadsided the car that was going through the green light. And, there's this big explosion of metal on metal. And my mom just got this huge look on her face. And she let go of my little sister's hand, and she held on to both my shoulders, and she shook me and she said, how did you know that? How did you know that was going to happen? And she was very upset with me. I remember crying. And, I didn't know why would happen. I didn't know. And I learned to cover it up. So, there are a lot of times in high school that things would, I knew something that was going to happen, that was going to occur. And I would be like, I'm not going to say anything. These people are going to think I'm weird if I tell them this is going to happen. So
Wow.
it's weird. It was weird childhood.
Yeah, so
I,
someone else is asking a question. Jenny Cosling, did you see any colors or feel healing light? And I'm going to actually go to full screen here so you guys can just, I don't need to be on the screen. This is a great, all right, I'm going to still be here. Yep, go
I
ahead.
know who Jenny Cosling is.
Okay.
So I didn't, when I was out of my body, I simply was looking down at my body and the room and the people's heads from up above, and what was happening, because it seemed obnoxious and loud down there. I was communicating with the being who was next to me, but I wasn't looking around, and I didn't see any lights or colors or anything. I just simply saw my body down below and what they were doing to it, and then when it went back in my body again.
Wow. That's just what a fascinating story, but what a fascinating life you have. You don't regret any of this, obviously.
No. No.
When you
Yeah.
see people that are stressed out with work and all that, has that affected you to the point where you go, you shouldn't just be stressed out? What are you doing with your life now? How are you helping people?
I try to help people. Yeah, so I worked at the university and it was huge in volunteering around Santa Barbara. And then an interesting thing that happened was that, so one of the after effects for me is that I have a connection to the other side. And it's not something that I can usually like control and like say to them, come talk to me right now. But what happens is that I'll get this message and it'll sometimes feel like right here in my chest, or it'll just be, something that I just positively know. And I was working at the university and, doing all the volunteer work. I'd been named an unsung heroine for the campus and, friends with the chancellor and everybody. And this one day I was in my living room and I had just woken up my son. He was in third grade. He was our youngest child.
Yeah.
And I was going through my living room and this feeling of this grip thing happened on the top of my head. And I was kind of freaked out. I thought I was having a stroke or something. So I was stopped in the living room and everybody else was in different parts of the house. And all of a sudden, this voice in the living room said, really big voice said, you will have a scrapbook store. And I, thought, what? I don't even scrapbook. I'm not, this is like, what? And I looked up at the ceiling and I went, God, do you have the wrong house or something? Because I don't even scrapbook and I don't know anything about retail stores. So, is this what? And so.
Yeah, God went, 31. Oh, man, I meant 32, not 31. Sorry,
What?
wrong house.
I'm like, really? Do you mean to next door? So I'm like going, and I went running into my husband. He was in our bedroom area, and I told him what had just happened. And he looked down at me and he said, I think that if you heard that big of a message, you should see what it's going to take to get you there. And I looked at him and I said, are you out of your mind? We have 2 kids in college, one heading there next year. We've got the 2 younger ones, and I don't have the money or the time to go create a store. And I'm like, what? And as I looked back up at him, I was expecting him to say something back to me. And the voice from the living room, which was this big, big voice, actually spoke out of my husband and said, Barbara, you're the one that received the message. And I went, and I went over and sat down, like really shaking and stuff. My husband's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I am not having a good morning. This is very weird. And no, I'm not okay. And so it ended up that I went to work that day a little bit late.
No, wait a minute. This is your second husband, not the one that you were with.
Yes. I got remarried to a 7-foot-tall ex-NBA basketball player here in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
He's the kindest, nicest, most wonderful guy in the whole world.
The gentle giant, huh?
Is all out of my life. Yeah. So I've got a good guy. And that's one of the benefits of the NDE, because if I hadn't had that NDE, I would probably continue to try to help that guy. And I probably would have, who knows what danger and damage I would have incurred.
Yeah.
So I have a loving person now. So I ended up getting off work at noon that day. And as I was driving downtown in Santa Barbara, I heard a different voice in the car. It was like a business-like voice. And it said, you need to stop and ask about a business loan. And I'm like, what? So I pulled into our bank's parking lot. It was like a block in front of me. And I sat there and said, I'll go in there, but it doesn't mean I'm going to actually like get a business loan. I'll follow, okay, I'll go and see what happens here. Within 14 minutes of walking into the bank, they promised and asked me when I wanted to come in the next morning to sign for $250,000 for a business loan. I walked in there, and literally 14 minutes later, without even signing anything, they had me coming in the next morning with my husband to sign for a business loan. We ended up opening the store 3 months later. 3 months after that, I was named Businesswoman of the Year for Santa Barbara. I didn't even know what to, I wouldn't even know what I was doing. I was like, this is completely new stuff for me.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. I got to give a speech in front of like 400 business owners, city council, mayor, and everybody. And I talked about how that had unfolded and literally had everybody in tears because, when something like this happens, you're not asking for it. It's not something that you want to have. I wasn't thinking about doing scrapbooking. In fact, I think one time with a girlfriend, like 5 years earlier, she'd asked me to come over. So I knew what it was, but it wasn't my idea of a good time. And so it's really awesome when you can have that. I think that it's really important for people to understand there is someone on the other side. I call it the other side. You can call
Mm-hmm.
it home, you can call it heaven, whatever you want to do. But I really feel that when you open up yourself and say, I realize you're there, I want your help,
Mm-hmm.
and I want guidance, and I want you to be in my life, then that's when they open up and they start helping you in ways that you think maybe it's intuition, like oh, you thought of something exciting and you go and do it. But really, it's not intuition. I don't think it's really you that has the intuition. I think it's their help that's coming through you, that you're getting that help. So I really suggest that to everybody. Just, I don't care whether you call it praying or you just call it talking to them. I don't call it praying. I just call them talking to them. And, I think it really amazingly works. I've had all these incidents in my life that my husband now looks at me and goes, if I didn't just watch that unfold, I wouldn't have believed that. That's amazing.
Wow.
How do you do that? Yeah,
That's
so it's pretty
crazy.
cool.
Well, let me ask you, what's your viewpoint on death right now?
Well, I feel that it is just a transfer over to another vibration, cross the veil, whatever you want to call it. And I feel that we have these experiences in our life here when we come and we, inhabit the earth, that we are here to grow our soul. We're here to take those rough experiences that we have to go through and find a way through them. We're here to have the wonderful experiences that we love, that we enjoy, and all of the experiences contribute to growing our soul and who we are. And then when we finally pass over, we just go over back home again. I call it home. And we look at our life because we have life reviews and we say, wow, I really did great in that. Ooh, I could have done better over here. I don't think it's like a panel of people or God saying, you didn't do good. I don't think that happens at all because he did not feel like that when I was out of my body. He felt completely accepting, loving, eternal, and wonderful. And so I think more it's us looking at our lives and seeing how we touched other people's lives in positive ways. And, sometimes we make mistakes, we all do. And I should have learned from that one. And I see now that I didn't do good in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what we're all doing down here. I think it's really important for us to love, to be kind, to care about others, to reach out and help. I think it lights my heart up way bigger than it helps the people that I'm helping because
Yeah.
it's always like, wow, I feel good about that.
Man, I could interview you for 3 hours, 3 days. What did you used to do before your near death experience that you don't do anymore? Like is there
Hmm.
like bad habits, like you were stressed all the time, or what did you used to do that you go, I don't do that anymore. I don't, it's not a problem.
I think judging people. I think that's the biggest one that I stopped doing.
Wow.
Before I had my near death experience at age 31, because my mom was a police officer, I'd been kind of talked to that tattoos were bad. They were bad, and bad people had tattoos. So as I was in my 20s and my 30s, I never,
No,
I don't
no.
have that. I don't have age story, but I was
I've
always
got a
like thinking
tattoo of NDE, right?
right on your rear. So I was always thinking that people were like kind of a little bit scary. But you know what? It was after the NDE that I started like going up to people and saying, "Oh my gosh, and my husband was totally like when I started changing that, my husband now was like, "Wow." Because he knew that I had been like against tattoos, always telling kids, don't ever get a tattoo. And now I like walk up to people that are completely tatted all over and say, oh, that's beautiful. What does that mean to you? And I talk to them and let's just like they're just normal people and I'm perfectly fine with it.
So
But I think that it
acceptance.
was
Acceptance is a
changes.
big thing you've added to your arsenal.
Absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely. Yeah. It's hard sometimes to accept everybody. So I know I'm not perfect at that, but it's definitely changed for the better. Yeah.
Wow. I feel so blessed to have met you. I really, really do. This is crazy. We're friends for life now.
I know, I
It-
want to be. And if people want to contact me, I'm happy to have them call me or email me or whatever and talk on the phone. I do that all the time because there's, that documentary that was done. It has, I don't know, 650,000 views or something. And so people contact me from all over the world, and I'm out there. My phone number's available, my email's available, and
she's the
I
girl.
talk.
She's the one. I mean, you are the near-death experience. You're the Keith Richards of near-death experience. I'm telling you.
I want to help people. That's what I can't give money and I can't, go over and, change their life for them, but I can hopefully give them seeds that they can maybe plant inside their own heart, that they can maybe, change some things in their own life, that they can better themselves in some way. And I'm just hoping that, something that I say or do can be contributing to a good thing for somebody. So that's
Wow,
all the
that's
reason
that's a
why I do it.
beautiful thought. What a beautiful life you're living now. Really, Barbara.
I love
I'm
it.
like you're an inspiration, you're a hero. That you didn't mean to die, but what happened to you, you
Yeah.
just took it and said, "Wow, I'm gonna be different from here on out."
Yeah, yeah, and that's a lot. All the NDEers say the same thing, that they feel so different afterwards with, not fearing death and having that intuition and not being competitive and not caring about money. And that's the big thing. We all are very live our life and find the ways that we can touch other people's lives in a positive way, and then that makes us happy. So that's where you motivate me is, oh, can I go over and give that homeless person money for dinner? I can do that, sure. And
Mm-hmm.
I can look at him and see him clearly and talk to him as though he's a regular guy. And that gives him the gift. It's not my job to judge whether he uses that for alcohol or not. That's not my job. It's my job to be the good person that says, hey, you know what? Hi, how are you? My name's Barbara. I have something for you. I don't need this $10 bill or whatever it happens to be. And I just go,
Mm.
yeah, I hope this buys you dinner. And you know what? It's so amazing because my husband
Mm.
is always shocked because he's usually with me when I do this. And we were talking about it this one day, and he said, you know that at least 90% of those guys that you walk up to, after you've done that, they say, God bless you. And I said, really? I didn't notice that. I really didn't realize that. And he said, yeah, it's really amazing. He said, they always say to you, God bless you. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Most,
So,
I mean, I've read stuff on that most poor people really are the most connected spiritually. It's actually a
yes,
dangerous thing to
yes,
have a lot of money. You know,
yeah. Oh,
believe me,
yes, I
I've had
think so too.
millions, and no, I'm kidding.
Well, I
It's
think
not fun. It's just not fun.
I think just being able to give it away and make a difference in somebody's life, even if it's like, a children's center or, someplace that you can make a difference. And that's
Yeah.
that's what you should do. When you have extra money, you don't need it. Don't live in a mansion. Instead, live reasonably and then help others. That's the most important thing.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you have any closing comments? Anything you want to say? Because I'm thinking of, I'm going to cut my screen out to have full screen of you, so you could just kind of tell anyone who might be skeptical or some questions that they might have. And actually, if you have any questions, put them in there. They're going to go up on the screen. You can ask Barbara. So, any closing comments, Barbara?
Well, I think that I want to tell people that this happens to millions of people all over the world, and it's been happening for centuries. They've actually got near-death experiences written up from clear back to Plato's time. Was a soldier that was written up. He was supposed to have come back to life, and I it happens to children, little kids, all the way babies at birth, all the way up to elderly people. And it's funny that no matter what country you're in, what religion you are, what color you are, it's all very similar information that each person talks about with their near-death experience. And you can look at all that information at two different websites. I know you're probably going to give it, but www.I for international, A for association, and Near Death Studies, NDS. So it's IANDS.org. That's the overall organization that my group in Santa Barbara is part of. And then there's also a ton of information, including thousands of near-death experiencer stories listed on www.n for near, D for death, E for experience, Research Foundation, RF, NDErf.org. And that's run by Dr. Jeffrey Long. And I've helped both of these organizations over the last 9 or so, 10 years or so. And so they're both very close to my heart, but they have incredible information online for you to access. So I would welcome you to do that. Plus all those YouTube videos that are out there of all the experiencers that you can watch online. So yeah, and then you've got, this live stream right here that just opened up your eye. So
yeah, that's great. I also put the web address under INDSSB for Santa Barbara. Now that is the global, that's the global chapter website?
IAN Santa Barbara is my website for Santa Barbara.
That's yours. SB Santa Barbara. Okay.
Is the IANS.org. I'm .com and they're .org. Yeah.
Okay, you're .com.org. Gwen is asking a question, and anybody please ask a question. We got her for a few minutes. Makes me wonder about my husband who recently passed away. So I'm sure, people are feeling that. Their husbands have died and they're wondering what it was like when they left. I mean, I remember hearing about one guy that was able to kind of communicate with the afterlife, and he was saying how this woman's son was out going crazy, drinking, was actually on a train and was jumping from train to train, but he fell out and he died. And he was like 18 years old. But what came back was that he didn't feel a thing. And it was so awesome for her to know that. How do you feel you're more empathetic with, obviously you feel more empathetic with people who've just lost a loved one?
Oh yes, and there's so many people that have come to me since I've had this IAN Santa Barbara group since 2011 when I started it. There's been a couple of women that stand out to me. They came for a number of the monthly meetings when I would bring in speakers that were near-death experiencers from all over. Eben Alexander, Dr. Eben Alexander, Anita Morjani, Dr. Mary Neal, all sorts of people from all over. And these two women both did the same thing months and months apart. They asked me to go to lunch with them, and then they told me that I didn't know anything about their personal life. They both told me that they had lost their daughter, and that attending the IANS meetings had so helped them to understand that their daughter was fine on the other side. And one of the ladies actually told me that she had been so in grief of losing her daughter, having her daughter die, that she was thinking of committing suicide. And that coming to the meetings and hearing these speakers and understanding death and understanding that we survived death and that we're perfectly fine on the other side, totally who we are, that she then lost that feeling that she needed to, commit suicide to go be with her daughter. So those were when I realized, I'm doing something important for at least one person. And if I can give this message to one person, then that's going to help in some way. And that's why I do it. So
that's great.
We'll talk anyway. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you can go to the website, go to INDSSB, and then you can also go to the national. That's the Santa Barbara one. We go to the national. And Barbara, are you okay with people just emailing you? Because I put your email address right there.
Yeah. And remember, it's IANDS. And International Association. The A is for association.
I think I spelled it right. Yeah, I may have said it wrong, but IANDSSB.com. Barbara at
got
iandssb.com. She wants you to
got
actually email her. Please leave a comment just saying what you thought of tonight. Really appreciate it. Just if you have a word, 2 words, just type it in and just say what you thought of tonight. And also, please contact her. You know, Noreen, Jenny, Gwen, everybody. Just leave a comment, email her. Could we put your phone number up there, or is email's good enough?
Sure, you can call me. It's 805.
Oh, wait, let me, I can do this. I can do this live. Hold on a second.
Hey.
I can do this live. 805, what else?
451.
Yep.
8646. So that's 8646. Yep.
All right, there it is. I got to blow it up. It's really small. Okay, it's on my mind now. I literally floated it over my head. You don't see it, but everyone else does.
Call me, Dave. Call me.
Call me. Act now and get a Ginsu knife. But yeah, if you want to text Barbara, she is I don't want to say the leading expert on it, because if you've experienced NDE, you're an expert. But she's done so much for the community. She's educated and helped. So there's her number. Call her up. Ooh, keeps getting bigger. Blow it down. Put that at the top of the screen. That's her number. Text her. And also follow her Facebook page. Do you have any Instagram accounts?
I don't have Instagram. I think my daughter has that, and
TikTok. You should have a TikTok.
I don't have that either. Yeah, I've got.
TikTok is TikTok's a lot of funny videos. I mean, you could die, come back, die, come back, die. They're all quick videos.
I wish I had a video of me in that. They probably had a camera in there, but they sure didn't. They destroyed all my records. I went back to the hospital about maybe 15 years later, and they said, "Oh no, we only keep the records for 7 years. We don't have anything on file for you." And I was like, "Oh,
that's too bad." I secretly, like I told you earlier, I wished I was an NDE. I don't want to have to die, but because of the fear of you don't come back. But I'm really not afraid of death, but I would love to experience that. I mean, I will experience it, but I will go all the way through. I may not come back. But I'm kind of jealous of you, and I think that's what I like about NDEers. I'm kind of jealous that they experience that and come back and they're just changed. It's just boom, they're different, and they're not afraid of death. Yep. It's like, wow, that's amazing. A couple more questions here before we close. Jenny is saying, "Yep, they're across the veil. Thank you for sharing the story." Oop, that got large. What is across the veil? I've never heard that before.
The veil is supposed to be like the curtain between this world and the other world, whatever that might be called, heaven, home, whatever. I don't believe there is a hell, so that doesn't even figure in for me. I think that everyone is accepted over there, and that I think that people come here and have, traumatic lives or cause issues and problems and stuff because perhaps, karma. Maybe they were the one that had got, attacked in the previous life, and so now they're the attacker to see what it feels like. And, I'm not exactly sure how the whole big picture works, but
sure.
Across the veil usually means home, where we go back to.
Back, yep. Noreen is asking, do you believe in mediums?
Yes, absolutely. And I didn't have any connection with them before I had my NDE or anything at age 31. But many years later, I was at an IANS conference, and I was sitting in the audience with 400 people. And this woman was up on the stage, and she's from Los Angeles. Her name is Hollister Rand. And she was talking about her near-death experience that she had. And then she came down into the audience and was doing audience readings for people that were in the audience. And I was clear in the back with my husband, and we were sitting there. And I was thinking, I don't really need to have her bring forward anybody that I know that's deceased, because I understand that they're all okay. I don't need that message.
Yeah.
So I hope that you go to somebody, that needs that message. So I'm sitting back there, and she's going to all these different people, and there's crying, and all this stuff is going on with, tears about the 24-year-old that died in the car accident. And so I'm sitting back there, and she comes back to almost right in front of me, and she says, "Back here in this area, I have this man presenting. He's an older man, and he's showing me, and she completely described my father. And even down to the golf clubs and his Navy uniform. And I was like,
Wow.
I didn't raise my hand. A lot of other people initially raised their hands thinking it was them that they were being talked to. But then my husband finally elbowed me and said, "That's your dad. She's talking about your dad." So I finally raised my hand and I said, "Yeah." So she goes, "Do you recognize this person?" I said, "Yes, it's my father." And I gave the details. And she said, "Let me see what he wants to tell you." And she kind of looked away. And then she had this quizzical look on her face. And she turned back to me and she said, "He says that you don't need any kind of a message, that you already understand all of this, that he just came to tell you that he loves you and that he knows you talk to him on the other side. He loves you." And I was
Wow.
like, oh my God, I can't believe that, because it was exactly what I had just been thinking and not even saying aloud to my husband. And so she and I are friends now, and I've got a lot of friends. Terry Yoder in San Francisco, an amazing guy. And I have mediums that come and talk at my IANS group, because I not only think that the whole picture is life, death, but it's consciousness after life as well. And if our consciousness survives death, then obviously we're someplace else, whether it's across the veil, home, or whatever.
What a
And
great point.
some people have the capacity to, connect with those people, just like I've been able to hear whoever it is that's warning me about things, and different things that I'm hearing someone's voice. I don't know who it is, but someone's telling me things and I'm getting messages. Well, they have that capacity to do that for people who are sitting in front of them, and I think that's just beautiful.
Wow. Deb Burton is saying, "What a timely interview." And Deb is, she had a post today about 3 of her friends who have cancer, and that's horrible. It's horrible. Deb, my heart goes out to you. Stacy Watts, Lignell, do our loved ones exist in our space, but beyond the veil?
I don't know that whole answer, whether they're actually here on but we can't see them, or whether they are actually, on a different vibrational level somehow in someplace else.
Yeah.
No one's given me that information. I did have an instance one time where the person who was warning me about something from the other side literally first initially whispered in my ear and told me that there was danger. We were driving on the freeway and danger ahead, big impact, danger ahead. It was about 9:30 at night. We were coming to Santa Barbara from San Francisco, and I'd done some talks up there, and my husband was driving. And when I heard that, I asked him to slow down from 65 to 50, and he did that. He said, "Yeah, sure." So then I thought everything was safe and fine, and about 5 minutes later, we then went around a corner, and way up ahead we saw this police car's lights, and I was very heightened and knew that there was something wrong up there, that was what the danger was. And so as we were coming up in the slow lane, it wasn't that the police car was parked off the freeway. He was actually parked blocking the slow lane. So my husband was approaching in the slow lane, and he had to change lanes to go around the police car. We still didn't know why the police car was stopped on the freeway lane. And whoever it was that was warning me grabbed both of my upper arms and put their face nose to me and screamed 10 miles an hour. And I was so freaked out that they touched me, because they normally don't. They just usually talk. And so that I actually kind of saw their face when they were up in front of me. And I freaked out and I screamed 10 miles an hour to echo what they said. And my husband slowed down so that right when he came level, he had changed lanes to go into the fast lane, and he was level with the police car. We were doing 10 miles an hour. Just as we slid past it, our lights finally lit up. The semi-truck that had tipped over on its side, the cab of the truck was directly in front of us in the fast lane. The middle of the truck, the part of the truck like body of it, was in the slow lane, and the rest of it was off the freeway towards the ocean, and we were heading right towards the gas tanks on the cab of the truck. And because we were only doing 10 miles an hour, my husband was able to swerve off to the left-hand side of the freeway
And
into the
just,
gravel and go
wow.
around the truck.
If you didn't do the
And my God,
10,
that's one of the ones.
You would have went right
I
through
have
and
not
barreled right
received
into it.
that. Yeah, so
Wow.
they sometimes can touch you and intervene. Yeah,
That's interesting.
it was a shock for my husband.
Deborah Freeman has a question. Do people who have repeated NDEs, do they go back and repeat their experiences the same and maybe more, seeing time pass between an NDE? Like, do they have stronger experiences that you know of?
I have no idea. I would really suggest she go to both the IANDS and the NDEer website to see if she can find the answer to that. I've never heard anybody talk about it, so I don't have anything to refer to on that. I had two experiences, but I don't know about the time in between. I knew that I had some, after effects, but I didn't know that they were after effects because I didn't know that first experience had happened.
Right.
So,
It's not something you
yeah,
study, right? It's just you're forced into
no,
this. That is
back in
interesting.
1986, nobody talked about it. Yeah, really.
So she has another question, and thanks, Deb. Deb, just follow me too. Go up and follow me. I try to have a lot of guests like this on. As a medium, yes, we are all of one source, and it just lost it again. We are all of one source, and the universe is also one. It is our soul's journey ascending higher through our experiences. We're always connected. Human flesh dies. Our souls are of continuance eternally. Yep.
Yep.
It's really like
That's
your consciousness has been. It's not about life and death. It's about your consciousness, right? It's like you're now
yes.
you're vibrating
It's
at a
not
higher consciousness. You're aware.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. It's learning all your experiences through all your experiences here, and what your focus is, what you choose to do with your life, and how you contribute to others. And then, you go back on the other side. You've learned some lessons, then you come back over here. I think multiple times. I think many times. We're here many times.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, give it a thumbs up. Give us this live feed a thumbs up if you're really loving this conversation. I think it's great. A couple more questions. We got like 4 minutes to go. Ask away. It's like Stacy Watts Lignell is asking to clarify my question. I live in a multi-generational home. My great-grandparents built it in 1901. My great-grandparents both died there. Died here. My grandfather died here, and my parents lived here but died in the hospital, as did my grandmother. Yeah, so she's wondering if they occupy a certain space in this world, and to your answer was you don't really know, but you do know that
I don't know.
presence of God will speak to you, who's everywhere.
And I think that all of our loved ones that have passed over are still completely them. They are consciousness. Whether they're occupying a new body that's been, they've been reincarnated, or whether they're in that other state where they are waiting to, come back down again, and they, maybe are learning stuff on that side as well about the life that they lived while they were here. I really don't know all the answers, and I'm, wish that I, could tell you the answer to that. But I have felt, presences here, and I have felt. I actually heard my mom one time talk to me and get me out of a terrible situation when I was getting abducted in Belize, and my mom, police officer mom, in the alleyway that I was being dragged down, said, use the element of surprise. And she used to tell me that when I was young, that if I ever had anybody try to abduct me, that I was supposed to use the element of surprise against the person. And here it was, I was in my 50s, and it's back when I was young when she used to tell me that, and I'd never heard it. She's been deceased for a number of years. And so, they're here. They're on, I think, our plane perhaps, but I don't know exactly how it works. And so someone else with more understanding may have better answer for you on that.
And a couple more questions. Jenny also, thank you for the questions, Jenny. These are great. When you engage with them, you will feel their presence in your home or whoever you are, or wherever you are. That's great. I'm going to start doing that a little more. I've lost a lot of family members. Gwen is saying, I have no idea why this popped up on my news feed, but I needed to hear this. Thank you. That's awesome. See that?
Excellent.
Gwen, I actually, when we go live, I share this live feed to a lot of different pages, pretty much pages that are dealing with what the guest is. I might have a guest who might be a plumber. I'm not going to share it on a near-death experience page. I don't know. Nothing against plumbers. I want them to live, but maybe you were on a page that dealt with that. I don't know. So let me know. Let me know what page you're part of, and but I can't share it to a personal page. If you're part of a group, that's probably why you saw it. And then Stacy, actually, let me go back. Noreen, my cousin, gives a big thumbs up. Yeah, give a big thumbs up. This is great. This helps my show out, by the way. When you give a thumbs up, it's like paying me $1. It really is, because it helps. This is how Facebook works. When you give me a thumbs up, Facebook sees that as, ooh, there's interaction happening here. Let's keep it on Facebook's live feed much longer. Not live feed, but on the thing. So when you give me a thumbs up, it's only helping me. It's like you're paying me $1. Just clicking it on. It's because we want more people to see this interview. I'd really appreciate that. Stacy says, I think about my grandparents and parents daily and can't say I feel them, but I kind of do. It's hard to explain. They are such a part of my daily life. It probably shows the depth of your love. Gwen is asking, grief support page. That's where, yes, I actually submitted this live feed to the grief support page. Absolutely. Yes. So, Gwen, look in your area to see if there is a INDS in your area. How often do they meet, Barbara?
Well, my group meets once a month, but since COVID-19, March and April, we didn't meet at all. But now we're doing all of our talks, and we do it on Google Hangouts, and we post it to the Facebook page. So if they go to www.facebook.com/IANSSB on the second Wednesday of the month, then they can watch it live from 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific time. But if they go to the Facebook page any other time, they can watch it because it's taped and it's there on the Facebook page for anybody to access for free. I never want anybody to have to pay for it. It's not important. For the money part's not important.
Yeah, that would almost discredit everything you just talked about.
Exactly.
Like I went to Heaven and Back, and I realized you don't have to worry about a thing. Heaven's great, but for $12.99, I can teach you how to. It doesn't make sense. Jenny,
I really have.
Yeah. Jenny is saying you can ask them to visit with you in your dreams when you're more relaxed and able to receive. You might be in your head too much during your daily life. I did that. It's really strange, but when my sister died, she was 62. It was soon after. It might have been a month later. I'm not someone to ask that kind of stuff, but I said, I would love to dream. I'd love to see a dream. And I went to bed, and I had the most vivid dream of her with her red hair in a ponytail on a bike, riding a bike. And I was like above her, floating over her, but she was riding a bike, and she had to be 12, 13 years old when I remember her, because she was about 10 years older than me. So it was when I remembered her at the very beginning, and she was riding her bike, and it was like summertime, and it was on grass, and I felt like I was about 3 feet over her, floating, and I woke up in the morning like, holy crap, was that vivid? And I clearly remembered I just asked for that the night before, because I don't know where I read it. Someone said you should ask them to visit you in your dream. Well, they didn't visit me, but it was more of a dream sequence that came in my dream. It was just, I can't explain it. It was a beautiful feeling, though. Barbara, you've been great. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Dave. What a delight to be here, especially with your group that you have. I've really enjoyed talking about it, and I hope it planted a couple seeds, and if anybody wants to talk to me more, they can call or email me, and I'll be happy to chat and talk with you. And also, if you know of somebody that needs to hear this information, the online YouTube video is there with Barbara Bartolome, NDE is the title for it. But you can also refer them to me if I don't have any training in being a counselor, and I want to state that up front. I'm not here to be a counselor to someone. I'm here to be a friend, and I can talk about what I experienced, but I don't know all the answers. Like obviously,
that's
tonight,
awesome.
There were a couple questions.
That's awesome. Stacy Watts, they keep coming in. I'm trying to end this thing. Stacy, I had a boyfriend take me to his resting place 3 months after he took his own life. It was 5 years later when I found out where that actually was. But I know I was there. What's that called when you are taken in your sleep by a visiting loved one? Are you aware of what that's called?
Well, it could have been an out-of-body experience. I don't know about the visiting loved one, but when you have a situation where I think actually in the sleep that a lot of us travel in our sleep and then go back when we, prior to waking up. So it could have been something like that where they just met you in your sleep and took you to the location and you were able to see that location. They wanted you to see that. And then later found out it was true. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. All right, well, we got to go. I usually end at 10 o'clock, and the questions keep coming in. And we can go all night. Thank you, Barbara Bartolome. I think she meant Dardine. You might have spelled wrong. When you're typing late at night. Noreen, you got to go easy on the glasses of wine. She's my cousin. Your typing is a little... But no, isn't this great? Isn't she great? This is great. We got to talk later. Noreen, I'll let her tell you her story. It's totally up to her. But Noreen, call her, text Barbara. She'll be a friend for life, and she's the expert. Stacy is saying thank you, Gwen. Thank you. You're not really an expert. You're just an experiencer, right? Sorry, that last name is wrong. She's saying, thank you. Everyone's saying thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This is Wine with Dave. I try to have some cool guests. Tonight's no different. She was great. Thank you, Barbara, for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. And stay on. We have an after party. You're going to stay on Skype after I close this out. Actually, I might call it an afterlife party.
Good one, Dave.
I'm quick-witted. All right, stay on the call. That was pretty awesome, if you ask me. Wow, was that good. She is so sweet and so caring. And thank you, everybody, for showing up on the show and just leaving all your comments. Great comments. We're going to go because I usually end at 10 o'clock, but I don't have to answer to advertisers. I could stay on until 10:30. It's 10:30, 987. It's 7:30 Santa Barbara time. But I always end with a joke. Where is my joke? There we go. This is kind of strange, guys. My wife, we have a can opener. We bought a can opener. She uses the can opener, and it works fine. It works absolutely fine. I use it. It does not work. She uses it. It works fine. I'm like, all right, let me go over. It doesn't work at all. I'm like, what the heck? It's all plugged in the wall. I don't get it. One day I watched her. I'm watching every single move, trying to replicate every single move. But still, when I use it, it never works. So uncanny. It's so uncanny. Hey, come in tomorrow night, creative people. We got Don Terrell tomorrow night. He's got a live show. He's going to talk about motion graphics, animator, all this stuff. It's going to be cool. Thanks for all the hearts. Thanks for all the love. Don't be afraid of death. What awaits you is what's been waiting for you. Oh, I just thought of that. Noreen, sorry that wasn't his last name. Stacy, LO. Stacy, thank you that you left. Thank you. Can openers. Take care, everybody. Everybody has an expiration date. Treat everyone with love. Good night.